personally am in favor of banning all guns.
All guns, okay. They buy back where they want in each house and confiscated.
I'm not sure what the other laws are around the world, but there's 2 Jeeps on Mars, people. You think we could get it together?
I'm getting fed up with children dying.
Yeah.
So, just stop fucking killing them. I think that the proposal of bringing more guns makes people more safe is more than likely NRA propaganda, because they are literally making money off of selling this stuff.
And the guns are not more important than kids.
Yeah.
Kids are more important, and I can't believe so many people won't listen.
What evidence is there that says that gun reform leads to less mass shootings? What do you think about the stats that show that places in the U.S. with less gun laws, they actually are safer and they have less homicide rates? Say like New Hampshire.
I've seen a shift from the NRA being focused on hunting, which my dad does and I've done, to just selling more guns.
Yeah, selling more guns. Well, the NRA doesn't sell guns, right?
Just in general, just assault weapons. They just need to be gone, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know that 85% of murders in the U.S. are caused by handguns?
No, I did not.
So would you be in favor of banning handguns as well?
Yeah, I suppose so then, yes.
So everyone talks about Australia and their mandatory buyback where everyone had to hand in their guns, right? So essentially, would you guys be okay with that?
I think I would.
I would definitely be. I would be in favor because I don't think people really need guns.
500,000 to 3 million people are saved each year by guns. So I mean, don't you think there's kind of that's illogical in a way, like morally illogical? Don't you see there's something morally wrong with having a group of men point guns at you and barge in your house, in your property, and to take away your form of self-defense?
You know, it's not just used for self-protection, right? Like, if I'm okay with that, because what's gonna stop someone from just going into, you know, a school and just shooting up the place?
Peace, no violence.
So people in support of the Second Amendment getting booed.
Fuck out of our country! Get the fuck out of our country!
Getting told to get out of the country.
Peace! Jesus wants peace! Jesus wants peace!
You're okay with the police essentially doing that, right?
I had the police come into my house uninvited. It is not a good feeling. And then I got educated.
Yeah. And that's how they would take the guns, though, right? Inevitably, they would have to go in people's houses and use violence.
If they said it's time for you to hand your guns over, that people who are rational would in fact do that.
And what if they don't do that? What if they're law-abiding
people, and they probably shouldn't have a gun anyway?
But there's a lot of mothers, right, that maybe don't have a husband, maybe a lot of girls that have used guns to protect themselves.
I got a pit bull. Go to the shelter.
What do you say about the shooting in Texas last year, the Parkland Sutherland shooting, where the person that stopped the mass shooter was using an AR-15, which the mainstream media barely reported on, but that's how the shooter was stopped. So
I think if a civilian using an AR-15 was able to stop a mass shooting with an AR-15,
and he was an NRA certified teacher as well. So.
Good for him, but I think the numbers would outscream that one exception.
We're lucky here in Massachusetts that we don't have senators with blood on their hands. Why do we need these assault weapons in the hands of civilians?
So you're for banning all assault weapons, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. I don't think there should be guns, period.
But don't you think there's still going to be mental breakdowns that occur even if we ban semi-automatic guns, right? Like people are still going to freak out at school.
They won't kill as many people. But it's not exactly. It's not going to be as easy to murder larger amounts of people.
What about using vehicles, right? Well, can't they just go outside during recess time and kill as many people?
I think the Second Amendment absolutely needs to be updated. It was written at a time where, when we had muskets. It's 2018, it's a really old amendment. Times change.
Yeah. I don't think we should have the Second Amendment.
Would you be in favor of what they did in Australia, where they took everyone's guns and the mandatory buyback program?
Yeah, the liberal leftist in me for sure would love to see that. And the father of 2 daughters and the director of a school, I would love to see all that.
What do you think about the mental breakdown problem? And the majority of the students, these school shooters, are actually on psychotropic drugs. right? So do you think that's more of a problem? All these the prescription drugs that they're pushing on kids via the public school system, the teachers, the therapists that are pushing these drugs, and it's become the norm for a lot of these kids to be on Adderall and all these other psychotropics.
You know, right now, some gun stores submit gun sales record in like literally toilet paper.
People that want more gun reform don't understand that guns save lives. That's why I have to get the message out.
Yeah.
I think people here are emotional, understandably so, because there's been a lot of public tragedies. But emotional responses and fear don't make rational policy. The Second Amendment exists for a reason. Ideally, we'd like to all live in a world that nobody had guns, but reality is that criminals do. And I don't want to live in a world where the criminals are the only ones with guns, because unfortunately then no lives would be saved.
Hey everyone, this is Marcelo here, and I just got to the March for Our Lives rally here in Boston. 1 o'clock right now, and the rally started in the morning, but officially it starts at 2. So there's like thousands of people here, as you can see. Try to talk to people while they're here. There's a counter protest as well. So people protesting the rally here, which is protesting gun rights, essentially, right? So they want more gun reform, and they want an easy solution. They think this is going to solve all of our problems by banning guns, but obviously we all know, people that actually do the research, that that's not the case at all. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. So there's a lot of debate about if we should ban semi-automatic weapons. No one really knows the definition of a fully automatic and a semi-automatic weapon. But they just want to ban all semi-automatic weapons, even though that's most of the rifles that we have here in America. So people aren't really that knowledgeable about guns here. The people that don't own guns are the ones that want to ban guns usually. So yeah, so we'll just walk around, see if we can talk to some people, see what's going on. Do you want to give a statement on why you're here and talk about your signs now?
It's fairly evident. We're just sick and tired of kids getting killed with guns.
Yeah.
People getting killed with guns.
So you're in favor of banning assault weapons?
Well, personally, I'm in favor of banning all guns.
All guns, okay.
This was our sign.
And how do you think that, or how do you plan to accomplish that, banning all guns? Similar to Australia?
I got off from work here and came here, and I'm hoping that, well, I guess it's futile that the government would actually do something.
Yeah, so similar to Australia with the mandatory buyback, where they went in each house and confiscated.
I'm not sure what the other laws are around the world, but there's 2 Jeeps on Mars, people. You think we could get it together?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the plan.
So, 100% you're for banning all guns, right?
I've never touched a gun. I don't need a gun. I prefer the police officers to have the guns.
So you prefer that a group of men that get the right to point guns at you to go in your house and point guns at you in order to take your guns away?
I don't have any guns, so it's not a worry for me.
Yeah, but you're okay with the police essentially doing that, right?
I had the police come into my house uninvited. It is not a good feeling, and then I got educated.
Yeah. And that's how they would take the guns, though, right? Inevitably, they would have to go in people's houses and use violence.
If they said it's time for you to hand your guns over, that people who are rational would, in fact, do that.
And what if they don't do that? What if they're law-abiding
people, and they probably shouldn't have a gun anyway?
Okay, so you would be okay with the police pointing guns at them, and if they don't follow the orders, they can shoot them?
Well, I have to tell you, unfortunately, if a police officer tells you to do something, you should do it.
Even if it goes against your constitutional rights?
if they amend the Second Amendment, then it wouldn't be against my constitutional rights. And unfortunately, you do get people who are in the police.
Yeah. Okay, one last question. I'm sorry.
You know.
Yeah. One last question.
I know, it's a fine line. It's not a perfect world.
Yeah, it's not a perfect world.
Somewhere.
You gotta start somewhere. What do you think about the stat by the CDC that shows 500,000 minimum to 3 million people in America are protected each year through self-defense by using a gun? Right, so they essentially save their lives through the use of a gun.
I think I'd have to do a little research on that. No offense, but
there's a lot of mothers, right, that maybe don't have a husband, maybe a lot of girls that have used guns to protect themselves.
I got a pit bull. Go to the shelter.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, no.
I think she was very quotable.
Yeah. I wonder what's going on there. I don't know what this is really accomplishing. Oh, look, they're rolling around. Okay. Hey, how's it going? Excuse me, sir, do you want to give a quick statement on why you're here today?
Because I can't believe so many people won't listen.
Well, listen to what? Here's,
listen to some kind of control around guns, and that guns are not more important than kids.
Yeah.
Kids are more important, and I can't believe so many people won't listen.
What kind of regulations would you like to see?
Start with banning assault guns.
Assault guns.
Start there. If we can't start there, then it's just insane.
So you want to ban all assault weapons?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you think that's going to reduce school shootings and mass shootings by banning all assault weapons?
It'll at least slow them down.
It will slow them down, yeah. And how do you plan to accomplish that? Like, how do you plan to? Are you looking to do a thing similar to Australia when they did their mandatory buyback, where they took all the guns away from all the citizens? Is that
My dreams would be that, but I'll settle for something more in the middle.
Yeah. And how would you confiscate people's guns?
I don't think I'd confiscate them. I think there has to be a discussion.
Just a discussion. So you wouldn't necessarily use force with in order to use force to take people's guns away. You wouldn't do that.
No.
And what evidence is there that says that gun reform leads to less mass shootings?
You see in places where there are no guns, that they do not have the shootings we do. So I think we need to take a step towards that. I don't think we have to be radical, but I can dream about it.
Yeah, so you think we need to take a step towards regulating guns, I guess, more, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is insane.
And what do you say about the stats, or what do you think about the stats that show that places in the U.S. with less gun laws, they actually are safer and they have less homicide rates? Say like New Hampshire or Vermont.
There are less people.
Less people, yeah.
There are less people. There's less people, less poverty, less people that get missed.
Yeah, because then you look at, say, New York, that has a lot of gun laws, but it's also very high in terms of gun crimes, right?
Yeah.
So
more guns, more crimes, more poverty, more people that aren't taken care of.
And last question, what do you think about the Second Amendment? What does the Second Amendment mean to you?
I guess it to me it's people having a choice. It was about people having a choice over what they can and can't do. And I think that's what the United States was built on. The people at that time wanted a choice over their own lives.
Yeah.
I don't think I think it's been taken to an extreme.
Yeah, you think it's been taken to an extreme?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
So lots of signs claiming that Republicans don't care about our kids. really big statement, but it's all emotional appeal mostly.
$2 for $5.
So, can you guys just say your name and how old you are?
Brady Metter, I'm 14.
14.
Jonah Fine, 14.
Jason McNew, 14.
Okay, so you guys are in middle school? Yeah. And what brings you out here today?
You know, a lot of students are being shot, and it just has to stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's really scary. You know, you walk into school and, you know, you don't know if today is going to be the day where someone just goes, you know, just snaps and just walks in and shoots up the place.
So what are you guys looking to accomplish? Is there any like policy proposals you have in mind?
Just AR-15s, they just need to be taken off the market, you know.
AR-15s need to be taken off the market.
Automatic, you know, just where, you know, if you pull the trigger, it's just like 10 shots. Yeah, just keep shooting.
That's a fully automatic gun, right? And that's already banned for the most part. Like, it's really hard to get a fully automatic gun. Like, only the military and the police have them. The guns that have been used for the mass shooting mostly have been semi-automatic guns, right? So they're assault weapons, but they shoot once when you press the trigger, right? So those are the weapons that are used, and those are the weapons that people want banned, right? They want assault weapons banned.
Just in general, just assault weapons. They just need to be gone, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know that 85% of murders in the U.S. are caused by handguns?
No, I did not.
So would you be in favor of banning handguns as well?
Yeah, I suppose so then, yes.
Yeah, because like Australia did it, right? So everyone talks about Australia and their mandatory buyback where everyone had to hand in their guns, right? So essentially, would you guys be okay with that?
I think I would, because, you know, I lived in Oklahoma before I moved here, so, and, you know, that's just a big gun, you know, a gun state. It's just a huge gun state, and, you know, it's just unnecessary to just have a gun. It's just unnecessary.
I would definitely be I would be in favor because I don't think people really need guns that much, you know. And also, I think it's way too easy for somebody to get a gun these days.
Yeah.
So, you know, anybody can sort of just get a gun and they'll just give it to you. So I don't think anybody really needs one.
Have you heard of these stats by the National Safety Council? These are government stats that show that 500,000 minimum to 3 million people are saved each year by the use of guns, right? By the defense use of guns. 500,000 to 3 million people are saved each year. Have you guys aware of that stat? Or?
Well, I'm not aware, but I just think that people are trying to give teachers guns and like more people guns for protection. But if nobody had guns in the first place, except for like, you know, the army or something, then there wouldn't be the need for teachers to have guns for protection or anything.
Yeah. And how would the confiscation occur? Like, would you be okay with the police department going in people's houses and taking away their guns?
I mean, I would be okay with that because you don't know what kind of lives that would save. I think people probably should be given just the chance to just hand in their guns, but if not, like, if there was like a law you couldn't have a gun, then I think they would have to take it. It could save a life.
You know, throw more background checks, like a lot more background checks.
So you guys are essentially okay with having a group of men that get the right to point guns at you, to go in your house, barge in your house, pointing a gun at you, in order to take away your form of self-protection, right? So, you know, you see there's something kind of strange with using violence in order to, quote-unquote, prevent it in the future, when I just gave you the stat that 500,000 to 3 million people are saved each year by guns. So, I mean, don't you think there's kind of, that's illogical in a way, like morally illogical? Don't you see there's something morally wrong with having a group of men point guns at you and barge in your house, in your property, and to take away your form of self-defense?
You know, it's not just used for self-protection, right? Like, if I'm okay with that, because what's gonna stop someone from just going into, you know, a school and just shooting up the place? What's gonna stop someone from, you know, coming to like a protest and just lighting it up? You know, like, what's just gonna stop someone from that? What's, like, you don't know if someone's just gonna bang, like, snap, you know. I'm I'm good with that, definitely.
You're good with the police coming in people's houses just to prevent mental breakdowns, I guess, right?
Yeah, and definitely the background checks need to be, improved a lot. Actually, they just need to be, we just need to have better background checks. And if someone who already owns a gun, if they have a history of mental illness, then they just shouldn't have a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what's gonna, if they have a history of mental illness, then what's gonna stop them from, using that gun to kill 20, 30 people?
Yeah. So do you know how many people die by guns each year?
No.
Not including suicide?
No.
So it's somewhere between 12,000 to 20,000, right? That's a lot, right? 12,000, 20,000. But 500,000 to 3 million are saved each year by using guns in self-defense. So don't you think the positives outweigh the negatives there? I mean, obviously we have a problem with mental breakdowns, but it seems like the positives do outweigh the negatives. Don't you agree? These are government stats, by the way.
Yes, I mean, the positives do outweigh the negatives, but still, though, I definitely think that, if someone, I still stand by my, my opinion on background checks.
Yeah, background checks.
There should be more background checks. There should be more, looking up, see if they have a history of crime. If they have a history of crime, then they shouldn't have a gun in the first place. It's just, this country just needs to tighten up on the gun laws, definitely. And the Second Amendment was made for town militias and for, in that time, bayonets and rifles. They took 2 minutes to load. No one knew that there was gonna be semi-automatics, right? Where you could just pull the gun, pull the trigger and just bang, 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 10 people are dead. They were made for bayonets. They were made for town militias. They weren't made for singular people.
Yeah, and what do you say about people that say it's used to protect us against the government?
Could you repeat it?
What do you say about people that counteract your what you just said and say, no, we need governments to protect us, or we need guns to protect us against government, right? That's why the founding fathers implemented the Second Amendment, right? It was to protect us from evil people, but evil people includes the government in general, right? Because they
just won the war against Britain.
Yeah.
And, I don't really have a statement right now on that question.
Okay. Well, is there anything you guys want to say to the viewers out there?
So, I understand that there are a lot of saved people from guns, and there are significantly less people who die from guns. But if we just got rid of guns except for maybe military protection, then there wouldn't be those 12,000 deaths at all, and you wouldn't need to have 500,000 people saved. You would just, there would be a lot less deaths because you can't kill somebody with a gun if you don't have one.
What about the millions of people killed in Iraq because of the U.S. invasion?
I don't really have a comment on that.
They're also getting killed, right, by guns. The Iraqi babies.
Well, my father, he went to Iraq. He was in the Iraqi invasion in 2003, and he thinks that we should have stronger gun laws, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Why are we giving civilians assault rifles, right? People that guns that belong in the military, that are used for military use.
Well, the fully automatic weapons, they're pretty hard to get already.
Yes,
and most of the mass shootings
they're semi-automatic.
Semi-automatic, yeah. So you pull it once, and one bullet comes out. So you have to keep
pulling it, right? But there's still 60, 70 bullets in the case.
Yeah, so there's a lot more bullets. Yeah.
And it takes one bullet to kill someone. So if just not even me, you could just pull it 60, 70 times. That's 60, 70 people already dead.
Yeah. What about driving a car through here and killing way more people? Should we ban all cars as well? I
mean, no. For cars, it's way easier because then you just have concrete roadblocks, right?
Yeah.
Just protecting, events, protests like this. You have roadblocks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for having this discussion. Yeah, I just asked you about it. So, can you guys just explain why you're here and maybe also explain your sign?
I mean, I think my sign kind of says, to a certain extent, why I'm here, which is, it's just I'm getting fed up with children dying.
Yeah.
So, just stop fucking killing them.
Are you guys all in high school or what? No, college?
Co-workers.
Oh, co-workers. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you guys were students. So, what brings you here?
Just the general discontent with the ability to evolve our laws and to push Congress to be at least upfront with their blatant buyout by the groups like the NRA.
Yeah.
Just sort of encourage the mass adjustment of our laws to be up to date with the 21st century and the capability of what our weapons can do, and being matured enough to realize that they don't need to be in the hands of civilians without proper checks and balances.
Okay, so what are some of the policy proposals you guys would like to see done?
I think seeing just more sensible ways to go about doing severe background checks, having a waiting time so that people can't get their hands on them right away, not having them be available in major retailers, making sure that guns that can fire up to, 60 or 70 rounds a minute are not available within, 6 hours of walking to a Walmart. Just seeing some common sense laws put into action.
And is there, were you be in favor of banning guns as well and having a similar law like they did in Australia, where they did the mandatory buyback and they went in and they bought people's guns? Would you guys be in favor of any type of ban at all, or just more reform, or like?
I think Australia is a decent model to look at for the way that this can be done successfully, considering they've had 0 mass shootings since they did their major buyback. I think that looking at that as a model for where it can be successful is a good start. I think doing a mandatory ban and buyback immediately on AR-15s and similar high-capacity magazine weapons would be a great start. I think they're letting people maintain things like single fire, like handheld pistols, it seems like a decent way if you want to find some middle ground, because I think there is some common sense in that. But I think proposing some sort of buyback using places like Australia as a model is a good idea.
Yeah. So essentially, you would be in favor of banning assault weapons, right? Or that
would be my vote.
That would be your vote. Yeah. And so you guys are kind of implying that more guns leads to more violence, right? Pretty much.
That seems to make sense. I think adding more guns into schools certainly will not beget less violence.
And what do you guys say to the argument that says more guns actually makes people safe? And a lot of people bringing up that are advocates of guns bringing up the government stat, which shows that 500,000 people minimum are saved every year by using guns in self-defense.
I'm not sure where the statistic for 500,000 people or however many are saved by guns per year. I'm sure that's probably true if you factor in law enforcement use of guns. That would probably line up. I think that the proposal of bringing more guns makes people more safe is more than likely NRA propaganda, because they are literally making money off of selling this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's fairly asinine to assume that more dangerous high-capacity weapons could keep more people safe. I think that high-capacity weapons are used for one thing only, and that is killing on a mass scale, and that they just don't belong in the hands of civilians.
Yeah. So you don't buy the idea that they're also used for hunting, semi-automatic weapons? Or
if you're hunting with an AR-15, you're a talentless hack.
Yeah. And what do you say about the shooting in Texas last year, the Parkland Sutherland shooting, where the person that stopped the mass shooter was using an AR-15, which the mainstream media barely reported on, but that's how the shooter was stopped. So
I think if a civilian using an AR-15 was able to stop a mass shooting with an AR-15,
and he was an NRA certified teacher as well. So.
Good for him, but I think the numbers would outscream that one exception. And I think if more often than not, if a civilian was in an active shooter situation and law enforcement was there and were making an entry to try to assessed the situation and they saw someone with an AR-15 and the shooter has been someone described with an AR-15, they're more than likely to get themselves hurt or other people hurt in the process.
Okay, one last question. What's your opinion on the Second Amendment?
I think the Second Amendment has some good intentions. I think when it was originally written, the idea of being able to defend yourself from wild animals, bandits, marauders was very sensible. I think guns have evolved since then. They've become far more advanced, and I think we need to simply reasonably look at how far they've advanced and consider ways that we can evolve with them so that they're no longer endangering people who shouldn't be shot in the first place.
And what about the idea that they're also used to protect us from the government, not just evil people, I guess, that includes the government as well?
If to me that seems a fallacy, is that the government has Bearcats and tanks and F-15s, and if we start implying that an AR-15 in the hands of one person can stop, if the government wants to take control with all the weapons they have at their arsenal, that AR-15 is not going to help you at all.
And do you think there's something immoral with having the government, which is essentially just a group of men, the police department, that get the right to point guns at you, to have them barge in your house, pointing guns at you and take your gun away? Don't you think that's morally inconsistent?
I think it's morally inconsistent that it happens to people of color far more than white people. So yes, I think it is immoral in the fact that people have been using that to keep large groups of non-white people under military command for decades. So yes.
Yeah. So wouldn't it be in favor then of confiscating people's guns?
I think confiscating...
Because you just said it's immoral, right?
I think confiscating assault weapons, yes.
But it's still immoral, right? In the act that you have police department pointing guns at you, and even if you're a law-abiding citizen, you don't want to register your gun, you don't want to give up your gun, you would be okay with the police department coming in using violence against you in order to take away your form of self-defense.
No, because the police department is there to protect people. They don't always do that well, but that is their job. Their job is to protect us from people who aren't obeying the law. And if they go out of their jurisdiction and shoot, I don't know, a black guy in his backyard holding an iPhone 20 times and then peaceably arrest a white kid who killed 17 people, then that's where the problem is. I don't see a problem in the government having the means to protect its citizens.
But how is it protecting its citizens by pointing guns at you and using violence in order to take away your form of self-defense? Right, so the cops are the ones initiating the force, which is not self-defense.
I don't believe there is any violent law enforcement during the Australian gun buyback.
But they're going to have to go in people's houses and take away their guns, and if they're law-abiding citizens that don't want to abide by the police's orders, then they're going to.
If the law changes and you're no longer supposed to have assault weapons, you're no longer a law-abiding citizen.
But it's still immoral, right? The law doesn't have to.
Not if we voted for it.
Oh, so it's not immoral if we voted for a group of men.
No,
to go in your house.
The point of democracy is to vote for representatives that you believe in that will do the will of the people. That is the point. If you intend to not go with those people, then your vote was pointless.
Yeah. So it's like the 40% that didn't want gun reform, they're going to have to accept the fact that police are going to use violence against them in order to take away their guns, right? Because
only if they choose to not give their weapons up peaceably.
Yeah, up peacefully. But they're the ones that are being peaceful in the first place, right? You have the cops that are initiating the force by starting the problems and going in someone's house in order to take their form of self-defense.
In what example? There's been zero examples of that happening, and I can feel you trying to push me into affirming what you want me to say.
Well, it's theoretical, right? It's theoretical.
Because we're talking about a theoretical example.
But it's inevitably it has to happen if we're talking about taking people's guns away, right? If we're talking about a ban on assault weapons.
If I had to choose between someone not willing to obey the law that could be theoretically placed banning assault weapons and them getting hurt during a seizure of weapons they have not agreed to give or sell back to the government, if I had to choose between that person and 17 high school kids, the 17 high school kids would every time. And that's where I'm going to stop. Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Peace, no violence.
So people in support of the Second Amendment getting booed.
Fuck out of our country! Get the fuck out of our country!
Getting told to get out of the country.
Peace! Jesus wants peace! Jesus wants peace! Jesus wants peace!
So this is
peace! Jesus wants peace! Jesus wants peace! Jesus wants peace. Jesus wants peace. Jesus wants peace.
Everyone here in support of the Second Amendment.
Jesus wants peace. Jesus wants peace.
Great sign.
Jesus wants peace.
So these people are just in support of the Second Amendment, and they're just getting booed and getting yelled at. This is pretty sad. The few brave Americans that have the balls to actually go out there and defend what they actually believe in the midst of all these people. So what brings you guys out here today?
We want some action taken. We're lucky here in Massachusetts that we don't have senators with blood on their hands, but we have to stick together, nationally, and we need to spread awareness. And enough is enough.
And what kind of policy proposals would you like to see accomplished?
Well, for starters, we need to get rid of the loopholes in these background checks. No civilian should have access to bump stocks or magazines. Why do we need these assault weapons in the hands of civilians?
So you're for banning all assault weapons, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. I agree. 1,000%.
And what do you say to the people that argue that they use them for self-defense and for hunting purposes and just for enjoyment, right?
Don't need an AK-50, whatever, AR-15 to defend yourself.
I agree. A deer is not going to fight back. You don't need a bump stock to shoot a deer. Come on.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So, what do you say about, like, a lot of conservatives bring up the example, the school shooting that happened last year in Texas at the church where the guy that stopped him with a gun, right? And he was an NRA certified teacher, and he actually used an AR-15, so a semi-automatic weapon in order to stop the mass shooter. What do you guys say to that one?
Well, honestly, exactly, that's one case out of many. And honestly, and if we didn't have these weapons, it would have never happened in the first place. So we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
26 people were already killed before that even happened.
Exactly,
so that's
exactly. So yes, of course, you can view these people as heroes, but the shooters were already there. It was already happening.
And you want to look at legislation in other countries like England, France, Germany.
Exactly.
They don't have mass shootings because.
Look at Australia in the early 90s. Australia's a perfect example. The numbers tell the story. The numbers tell the story. Look at the stats.
So they did a mandatory buyback, right? And they went in and they took people's guns. Would you be in favor of doing that with assault weapons?
I would. I know that it would be basically ripping them out of their cold, dead hands.
Right,
to be perfectly frank,
because you're gonna have to inevitably use violence.
Exactly. But let's
weapons out of their homes.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get to the point when we're taking all guns away. We probably never will in this country. I think we're kind of too far deep at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even to the left of him. I don't think there should be guns, period. But I know that won't happen here. But
don't you think there's still going to be mental breakdowns that occur even if we ban semi-automatic guns, right? Like, people are still going to freak out at school.
They won't kill as many people.
But it's not exactly. It's not going to be as easy to murder larger amounts of people.
What about using vehicles, right? Well, can't they just go outside during recess time and kill as many people?
There are other ways to kill it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't regulate certain things.
Exactly.
People always kill other people. That's not the issue, really. It's more a sensible control to limit the amount of shootings. There will always be shootings. I don't think they're going to disappear, man.
Yeah, and one more thing. What about a lot of conservatives use these stats as well, saying 500,000 minimum people are saved each year by using guns in self-defense. That's 500,000 to 3 million people, right, that are saved a year. Then those are government stats. Right. And then you have, it's like 12,000 to 20,000 that are killed by guns each year, not including suicide. So, they would say the benefits outweighs the negatives, right? That you have 500,000 people protecting themselves, and this does include semi-automatic weapons as well.
Defending them from the government, defending themselves. So they're defending themselves using assault rifles, is what? Well, I don't
that
know.
includes assault, right? Because like, there's a big misconception on
to see the number
assault weapons
I'd
and.
like to see it broken down a little bit further to see how many people protect themselves using an assault rifle rather than a handgun.
Yeah.
You know, the government forbids research into gun violence. It's illegal for them to do that. There's no real official. They want to make it a public health crisis, but the Congress is not letting anyone do that.
That's why we need to vote out anyone who has their bloodline pockets from the NRA.
So you think the NRA is kind of responsible for some of this as well?
They lobby Republicans left and right. They pretty look at Rubio, for example. He's going to go bye-bye. If we have this whole sea of students who are turning 18, they're going to go vote him the hell out. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Enough is enough. Luckily, of course, we've always have to worry about gun violence. But when we were in school, 15 years ago, we didn't really this really wasn't as much of a thought. Of course, yes, we've had Columbine and all those back in those days, but. Time's up.
Yeah. And last thing, do you think other factors are also involved in school shootings, say psychotropic drugs, the schools, the therapists, the teachers kind of pushing a lot of Adderall and other pharmaceutical drugs on students? Then you have social media.
If you want to talk about Big Pharma, we can absolutely talk about Big Pharma another time for sure. But that's a whole other.
Because the majority of school shooters have actually been on psychotropic drugs.
Sure.
I think it's like somewhere 80%.
Sure.
Close to that. Are
Absolutely. I think it's also a wider cultural problem.
A cultural problem, right?
Because I think it's something like Canada has as many guns, but they don't have as many shootings. I think in this country, there's an obsession with. It's a very violent society. Yeah, exactly.
I think the bigger issue is culture, right? And systemic issues, and not necessarily just banning guns and taking guns away from people.
No one's taking anyone's guns away, and that's what the right has such a problem with. Is no one's guns are being taken away, and we couldn't even if we wanted to, which we do want to, of course. Assault rifles.
It's regulation.
It's all about regulation.
That's what they're scared of, I guess. They say
they're scared, and they're so scared. But what are they scared of? Why are they so scared?
Because they want guns. They think it's government overreach, which is.
Yeah. Last question, what do you think about the Second Amendment and how does it relate to gun reform?
I think the Second Amendment absolutely needs to be updated. It was written at a time where, when we had muskets. I know the right also argues that wasn't true. We had assault rifles, whatever. But it's 2018. It's a really old amendment. Times change. For example, it's not exactly apples to oranges. When Jane Mansfield was killed in the 60s with her family in the car, her car went underneath a tractor trailer. As soon as after her death, they decided to add the extra guardrail to the tractor trailer. See what happened? Times change.
Well, I guess they would say it's used as self-defense against the government, mostly, right? It's also to protect you from bad people, murderers, whatever. But it's mostly to protect us against the government. So they want, I guess, the same capabilities as the government in a way, right? They don't want
take the government into their own hands. Sure. That's what they want to do.
I don't think we should have the Second Amendment, but I know it's never going to happen. So,
is there anything else you guys would want to say to the viewers out there?
Just enough is enough, and it's just how many more of our children and adults, how many more of Americans need to get killed and slaughtered?
Yeah, I second that.
All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You guys want to give an interview or a statement while you're here? Do you want to talk? Sweet. Okay, cool. So what brings you out here today?
The gun control march.
Are you in middle school? What grade are you?
School. I go to BLS.
Okay, and what's the intent behind this rally, or like why'd you come?
To tell Congress to clean up their act and get legislation on the floor.
Get legislation on the floor. So I'm assuming you think gun reform is going to decrease mass shootings and school shootings?
Yes.
Do you have any studies that that prove that when you take away people's guns, there's going to be less violence and less shootings? Is it?
All right, we're done here.
We're done? Okay.
Make Germany Prussia again!
Or are you back here?
What?
What are you doing back here?
I'm supporting gun rights, man.
Oh, you're supporting gun rights?
Yeah.
All right, come on!
What are some of the responses you're getting from people?
They're idiots. One person's like, that's a symbol of white nationalism. No, you're fucking idiot.
White nationalism, just because you believe in the Second Amendment, right?
I don't know. I don't even question it anymore. Bunch of idiots.
What other responses have you been getting from people angry at you?
Yeah, they're saying like they're calling you they're calling you like Nazis, but the Nazis were for gun control. It doesn't make any sense.
Is that why you're behind all the police officers?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a gun-free zone in the Commons anyway. Even if you have a concealed carry permit, you're not allowed to bring a firearm into the parks in Boston.
What do you think about the shooting in Florida, where the police department was warned 32 times about the shooter? The FBI was warned twice. And most people here expect us to give up our guns to these people, right? The police department, the government, right? How are they going to fix the problem by us giving up their guns?
You just said it all right there. I mean, it could be incompetence on their part, and the FBI has a lot of screw-ups, inside job, like no one has, it could be anything.
Yeah.
It's just another case that the FBI just needs to completely be reformed or abolished.
Yeah, we really need to reform the FBI and police department.
And the county sheriff, no one in the sheriff's department in Broward County is getting held accountable. Yeah, they're getting a lot of PR flack, but no one has been fired. The people that got in trouble for it, they're on administrative leave.
Yeah.
Because they're getting a paid vacation. It's stupid. No one's getting held accountable there, that whole department.
Yeah, no one's being accountable. There was police officers that were waiting outside and they didn't do anything. They didn't even go to school.
Get into confrontations a lot?
Nothing else to add. You're right.
Thanks a lot.
I mean, do they get into confrontations a lot?
Walking around, dude. If you want to walk around with us, do that.
Okay.
No, you don't want to walk around?
I gotta take a shit. All right, have a good one.
I'm against the NRA because I think they're terrorists, and I'm not a fan of the president.
So, what is your sign say?
People say that the way to stop a bad guy with a gun is to have a good guy with a gun, and to me that sounds someone's trying to sell two guns.
Yeah. So you don't think guns actually protect people?
A gun, in many situations, can protect people. But I've seen a shift from the NRA being focused on hunting, which my dad does and I've done, to just selling more guns.
Yeah, selling more guns. Well, the NRA doesn't sell guns, right?
Well, they have magazines, and I think through subsidiaries they do sell a lot of equipment for the equipment for guns.
And what do you think about the stat put out by the government that that shows that 500,000 people, minimum to 3 million, are protected each year through the use of defense by using firearms, right? That has saved their lives. Yeah, that's from the CDC, so that's a national stat. That's from government. Yeah.
I've seen pretty much statistics on many deaths occur by just having a gun in the home.
Yeah.
Just having a gun in the home.
Yeah.
I almost shot myself as a child playing with a gun my dad gave to me.
Yeah.
I could have been a victim because my dad did not have a lock on the gun. Nice little semi-automatic. And now I realize the danger I had by playing it without my dad's supervision.
Yeah.
And I enjoy firing guns. I fire shotguns, but no, the laws need to be enforced better. And I think the NRA is focused on selling more guns and not focused on our rights. Because yes, it's a Second Amendment right, but this has gone cuckoo what we're doing.
Yeah. So, what are some of the policy proposals you want to see accomplished?
Better background checks. Right now, some gun stores submit gun sales record in like literally toilet paper. I would like the systems of reporting gun sales to be in a more modern and electronic way instead of just tiny pieces of paper that's hard to track down.
Well, did you know, I mean, there's already like quite a bit of standards when buying a gun, right? You have to, they perform like a background check and the state varies, and it's not that easy. Yeah.
No, it's very easy. I can walk into a gun show and not necessarily even show ID.
Yeah, the gun show loophole, yeah. You're talking about the loophole for the gun show.
The Benzo sales, there's no need to check ID.
Yeah. So essentially, you want more gun reform, right? And you would want a federal background check, correct? Like a background check that's done by the federal government that everyone has to, yeah.
But it's not standard because it can vary by state. And there's this fear that if we have a list of gun owners, the next day they're gonna drag every gun owner to jail, which I think that fear is unfounded.
Yeah, a federal list. That's what people, like you're saying, they have a fear that the government's going to track them if they agree to a federal background check, I guess. And what if someone wouldn't be in agreement with it, or with the background check, right? What if they're like, no, I don't want the background check. I want you to leave me alone. I use guns in my house safely. What would you say about that? Would you force someone to get a background check, or
For someone to have a driver's license to drive a car, I think it should be treated like a car.
yeah, I think it should be treated like a car.
Like a driver's license.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything else you want to say?
That's a weird question.
Enough? The NRA cares more about selling guns than protecting the Second Amendment. Because you can still protect the Second Amendment. My dad can still hunt and still have some better gun reform. I think they care about selling guns and not actually care about the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
And they're making me sick. My dad's no longer an NRA member because of their actions.
Yeah. Do you not think they care about children?
The way they behave, they give the impression.
Yeah.
I'm sure individually they care, but they could do a lot better. And very disappointed that my dad's not being a member. He's a long-time hunter. He taught me how to hunt, but he doesn't support the tack that they've taken.
Yeah.
I would never become a member, and now he's no longer a member because what they've done. And I say I shot shotguns and I had a small gun. Like I told you, I could have killed myself when I was a kid because I tried to load it on my own.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a gun lock, which is something I think should be done. Because I had access to a gun growing up. No gun lock. I'm lucky to be alive, arguably. So yeah, I'm disgusted by the actions of the NRA.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Keep teaching high school art. That's heroes work. Thank you. What's your name?
Marcella.
Marcelo.
Yeah. Do you want to go on camera? Or?
I want to run for governor. I'm already running for governor. I think we can just run a campaign from my living room. Peace and love, best conversation ever. What you're doing with people. We stage the best conversation of all time. I am running for governor. I'm going skiing. If I became governor, I'm going skiing. I'm coming in not with a shirt and tie onto the state house. I'm coming in with like tea and mushroom ceremonies. Fine, man. That's fine. I mean, I'm like a well-studied yogi and I understand it all. I'm saying if we got elected governor, you and I and everyone, you're not going to get elected governor. Why not?
So, what does your sign say, and what are you doing here at the rally?
So these cowards aren't the lawmakers we're looking for. I think it was said by Obi-Wan Kenobi and A New Hope, if I haven't misquoted him.
Yeah.
I think the point for me is that we've got a whole bunch of lawmakers who are just keep bowing down to whatever the NRA says rather than doing what our kids need and our schools need. And that to me is cowardice.
Yeah.
And so I thought it would be a nice play on the good guy of the force. I've also got the flip side here, which is I find your lack of gun reform disturbing.
Yeah.
Darth Vader, with the idea being that, it's really both sides of the aisle that are struggling with this issue of how do we find the right balance between our Second Amendment rights and the ability to keep people safe from these bare arms that are too bare sometimes.
So what kind of policy proposals would you like to see accomplished?
Well, in my ideal world, we would limit having any assault rifles in the hands of any civilians, no matter their age. In reality, maybe a first step measure might be to limit the age, like maybe age 25, a citizen can have an AR, perhaps after they've done public service in our armed military branches, or in some place where they've had the extensive training that they would need to be able to understand the sophistication of that kind of weapon of war.
Yeah.
The other piece would be to really think about how do we make sure that we have access to health for our most needy students, whether they have an identified need or not. Just the ability to make sure our schools have programs in place where every kid feels socially and emotionally, spiritually, physically, intellectually healthy and safe. And I don't mean spiritually in a specific religious sense, just that sense of the spirit of a person.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what a lot of people are missing here, right? Because it's all about gun reform and not really talking about mental breakdowns and helping the students more in schools and setting up different programs. Let's move a little bit to the left, so yeah. All right, so let's keep on doing the interview. I'm sorry about that. So you were saying, so you would be in support of a ban on all assault weapons, right? Including AR-15s, AK-47s.
Yes, any of those that were designed in order to kill humans in mass in a theater of war. I think don't have any place in a civilized society that aims for peace and safety for all of its citizens.
Yeah. And what do you, how would you accomplish that? So would you be in favor of what they did in Australia, where they took everyone's guns and like the mandatory buyback program?
Yeah, the liberal leftist in me for sure would love to see that. And the father of 2 daughters and the director of a school, I would love to see all that. In reality, I think we have to think about, you know, the steps that will get us there. If we think about this in the narrative arc of history towards greater safety, what are the things that we need to do today that are the seeds that we plant that will have long-term effects in the next 5, 10, 15 years as this movement continues to grow and develop, and that we can cultivate kind of a more longer term approach. So the first step may be we're limiting the age to, you know, to 21, to 24, to 23, some sort of step, and then making so that there has to be certain requirements in order to get AR or assault rifle weapons in the hands of people, and then like you know, if we could have like a driver's license sort of deal where you have to again and again, you know, get tested. Well, I guess you don't have to get tested for driver's license but once, but at least have that initial test. And, you know, I don't know.
Did you know they said that 85% of murders are committed by handguns? Right, and then the rifles, the guns you're talking about, it's only 1 to 2% of all murders, right?
Right. Well, I think what I'm here for as a school leader is to try to minimize the potential fatalities in my school and other schools as a first step, and the weapons that are doing that sort of mass destruction and that sort of mass carnage, not just in the tragic death of the victims who die, but also the whole communities that are so negatively impacted by these events. You know, not to minimize the school shootings that can happen with a handgun, and the tragedy and loss of life and the disequilibrium that it causes in those communities. But the first step is we gotta lock down the biggest threat, and right now the biggest threat are the weapons of mass destruction in the hands of citizens who are able to do harm at a moment's will.
Yeah. And what do you think about the mental breakdown problem? And the majority of the students, these school shooters, are actually on psychotropic drugs, right? So do you think that's more of a problem? All these the prescription drugs that they're pushing on kids via the public school system, the teachers, the therapists that are pushing these drugs, and it's become the norm for a lot of these kids to be on Adderall and all these other psychotropics, which don't.
Well, so now we're getting into the larger systemic issues, right? You're talking about the drugs are a symptom of something larger and deeper that we haven't quite figured out a way to have a national discussion about, much less address in a real and meaningful way. You know, we've got, I'm at a conference here in Boston, actually an education conference, and one of the things that are coming up is how often kids are on screens these days. And with that much screen time happening, do we have kids who are going through withdrawals when they come to school and are expected to be off screens for 6 hours? And anyone who's in a withdrawal situation isn't able to concentrate on what's going on right in front of them necessarily in a real and meaningful way. The other side, and you know, the larger mental health issues, I can't speak to because I'm not a professional in that field, but we definitely see a change in students' social emotional well-being. The more devices are in their hands, the more separated they are from each other and from learning just the small little social skills that we have of just nodding when someone's talking. You know, little things that you learn just when you're bored and have to interact with people around you.
Yeah. So one last question. Do you think mental breakdowns would still occur if we regulated guns more, if we banned assault rifles? Don't you think they would still occur in some way? I mean, through the use of a vehicle or just some other ways that people would still find?
Yeah, the argument of people who are intent on doing harm are going to figure out a way to do harm is still there. Yeah. And that's absolutely true. I think, you know, in a theater of war, if we want to call this these terror attacks, then in the theater of war, you eliminate the largest threat at the time of happening, and then you address the next one until you whittle yourself down. I mean, that's kind of how, you know, we keep going for that. What is the weak point that we can find where we can break through the front lines on this? And maybe it's a comprehensive mental health piece, maybe in larger piece, it's something else.
Okay, all right, thank you. This sign right here. So, more guns equals less crimes.
Is that okay?
Did you see that? Yeah. Hey!
So I like your sign here. Do you want to just explain it? Guns save lives. So more guns equals people less in danger, right?
I believe guns save lives. Yeah, they're good for self-defense.
Yeah, they are. And what do you think about everyone here saying they want more gun reform, and a lot of people saying they want to take away people's guns?
People that want more gun reform don't understand that guns save lives. That's why I have to get the message out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people here are emotional, understandably so, because there's been a lot of public tragedies. But emotional responses and fear don't make rational policy. The Second Amendment exists for a reason.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm guessing you know this stat. 500, independent, YouTube.
Oh, this is YouTube?
Yeah, so I guess you know this stat, 500,000 to 3 million people in America every day, or every year, are saved by guns, right? You know that stat, right? And it's like 10,000 to 20,000 that are killed by guns every year. So, like, obviously, it outweighs the benefits of having guns, right? That outweighs the benefit of not having guns. I mean,
as I was saying to someone earlier, ideally we'd like to all live in a world that nobody had guns, but reality is that criminals do, and I don't want to live in a world where the criminals are the only ones with guns, because unfortunately then no lives would be saved.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. And what kind of responses have you been getting? Are people angry at you? Or?
I got mixed responses. Some people have just been calling me names, and other people have actually come up and thanked me even though they disagree with me. And some people have just come up with, honestly, just want to understand my point of view. So it's been quite mixed.
Well, I feel like you're quite brave actually being here by yourself and having this sign. So thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.